Good morning and welcome to the Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We see nowadays two things, two buzzwords which people use time out of number and they're absolutely meaningless, useless, and have no utility whatsoever. As a matter of fact, they are conduits to being harmful for any creative effort. And the words are group thinking, teamwork. When I listen to it, I feel that what's gone wrong with the people? What people call group thinking is basically inimical to critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is a sign of a person who can think for himself, for herself, for a person who can be individualistic, and being individualistic is a hallmark of a Homo sapien. How much are you in control of your opinions? And you would find that they are often molded by other people, and all your opinion undergo a sea change the moment you are in a certain group. The opinion of the group overshadows your opinion. So how can it be critical? The group thinking always is the opinion of herd. And that's why parliament is called an assembly of baboons. That's exactly the word of parliament. They are all apes and baboons talking nonsense, using very high sounding words, but in reality, meaningless words. If you go back to the intellectuals of 1950s, say when I was a young callow youth, you would get the impression that people thought individuals could determine their own beliefs. There were philosophers like Hannah Arendt and Irving Howe, who thought that if you stood alone and researched carefully and hard, you could descend down from the perch of your groups, transcend your background, and render independent, objective judgments of society. There were people like Orwell, George Orwell of 1984, the famous one, who believed that experience was much more important than identity. That if you put yourself in other people's shoes, you could feel what other groups were feeling and communicate that experience. That was okay, but then you were communicating the experience of that group. A literary critic, Lionel Trainling, had great faith in imagination. And he was certain that Shakespeare could capture the experience of being a woman, though he was not a woman. And that was because of his vivid imagination. Now imagine, could a team have produced Othello, Macbeth, King Lear? Or come to arts, could Michelangelo have painted Sistine Chapel with a team? The team was there, but the team was not to overpower his thought pattern. As a matter of fact, the reality is that having passed that era of fighting communism and fascism, people have stopped emphasizing individual reason and in fact are allergic to group thinking. And when I say people, I mean only the people who think, people who can visualize, people who can imagine, the imaginative people, the innovative people, the go-getters of thought, not of material things. But we don't want to do it anymore. In fact, thinking this way has got into trouble. And the reason is the rise of perspectivism. That is a belief often traced to Nietzsche, the German philosopher, who what you believed is determined by where you stand. And now, group thinking opinions are not guided by objective truth because there is no such objective truth. Truth is subjective. What is your truth may not be my truth. I'll give you a simple example. In most of the societies, being virgin and not having sexual relationship before marriage was a virtue. Not in today's society. It's a normal done thing. So the truth has changed. And basically you are guided by your own spot in the society. Then, came critical race theorists like Michael Foucault. And the argument was that the society is structured by the elite. So belief in the culture of the elite became the norm, and the purpose was to preserve the inequality. But then, in the age of democracy, you don't talk of inequality. So then, subtle ways are found to preserve inequality, but talk of equality. So that was at the political level. Now, in the corporate level of the place, people started talking of the teamwork. Let the teamwork do this. That I'm successful because of the teamwork, while the reality is, while those successful people were talking of the teamwork, they were not talking of the team as a team. They were talking of team as their assistants and their helpers, the hewers of wood and drawers of water. The people who could do those jobs which were of routine nature, but they did not contribute to the thought process. Now, have you ever gone to any meeting and heard people talk, say in a town hall meeting, and somebody rises up and you say, well, he is speaking like a typical terrorist, he is speaking like a fundamentalist, or he is speaking as a Latina. Isn't it talking as if he's in love with the queers? Well, this guy is talking like a Jew. What does that mean? You are stating group identity. And that group identity is basically influencing your thought. So once a group identity influences your thought, how can you be critical in your thinking? And how can you be creative? Last night, a young startup guy was talking to me. He's setting up a huge organization, apparently starting up, but then good ideas anyway. And he said, well, I'm doing it because of the team. I said, you're talking bullshit. You are doing it. Your team is your aid. So to inflate their ego, you can say it's a teamwork. But the reality is your work. Now, what has happened is that we have shifted from an emphasis on individual judgment towards a greater emphasis on the collective experience. This will be clear for the media. Excuse me, please. The media people used to talk objectively. They will be observers. They would be like referees standing on the ring side and saying this is right and this is wrong. Not any longer. Today you pick up a newspaper and read any op-ed. You would find, well, this guy is a conservative. This guy is a Democrat. This guy is a Republican. This guy is a liberal. This guy is belonging to X group political thought, this is a guy belonging to Y political thought. So the individual inquirers that they used to be have been converted into polemic writers and into political teams. Over the years, many people have stopped making any distinction. Today, group labels matter a lot. And when you read these op-eds, you would not think of original individual thinking, but spokesman for a certain point of view. No, there's nothing wrong for that. I don't say it's bad, but then don't call it critical thinking. Don't call it objectivity. Don't call it teamwork. You see, people now get upset. Now, on the other side, bring in formerly marginalized groups, and that is becoming the achievement. And people forget that the whole education system all over the world is based on the idea that the education trains individuals to be critical thinkers. Now, can you believe that an education which is geared towards collective education, how can it promote individual thinking, creative thinking? Because it believes in lowest common denominator. The whole education is geared to not the greatest common factor, but the lowest common denominator. And the lowest common denominator is a capability at animalistic level. The political system, again, is based on persuasion and deliberation that leads to compromising truth and telling lies. The whole political system, whichever political party you may believe in, they are systematically programmed to tell lies, to distort truth, to present the reality through the colored glasses. So nothing is objective. And the basis of the human dignity in the society, which is a major thing, is our capacity to make up our own minds. But if you look around, people are always unpredictable, and that unpredictability is a sign of critical thinking. A guy can be a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or a conservative or a fundamentalist all his life, and all of a sudden he says, no, this is wrong, should be there. He has cut the bounds of his group thinking and become a critical thinker. And that is why where people like Hirsi Ali, people like Shireen Qureshi come in picture. But there are people who pose themselves as critical thinkers, but they are posers, frauds. They pose as rebels, and in reality, they are on the payrolls of others. I will not name any name. But the notion that the group membership determines opinions determines all that. It undermines all that. All your opinion is undermined by the group thinking. It is basically one group, poised against another group. You know, if you are fond of music, you will know point, counterpoint. And that is the sign of critical thinking. As a matter of fact, the group thinking doesn't believe in point, counterpoint. It just believes in hammering what is right according to their need, their selfish motives. And as a matter of fact, any opinion based on group thinking is a sham, is a fraud. and beliefs are just mass group make to preserve the power structure. Similarly, teamwork is good insofar as routine jobs are concerned. But do you think Microsoft or Apple could have been what they are today if it was just a teamwork? No. The spark was given by people like Gates and Steve Jobs. And then, the other people took it up. So, the real creativity, the real creative thinking comes from an individual. As I said, a team could not have written Shakespeare. A team could not have composed the Fifth Symphony or the Blue Danube. A team could not have written Waris Shah's Heer. A team could not have written Kalidasa's Meghdut or Tagore's Gitanjali or Chia Ahube's writings or Thomas Mann or Dostoevsky. A team could not have painted like Whistler, could not have created masterpieces that Michelangelo did, and Mona Lisa would have been a poster, not a great work of art. The epistemological foundation of our system has to change. And the change has to be there. What we need is critical thinking. What we need is not group thinking. What we need is human beings and not a herd of cattle. And that's what group thinking is. Mindless ants running hither and thither. That is group. Lemmings jumping into the ocean to commit suicide. That is a group. And if we believe in group thinking and teamwork, we are no better than suicide-prone lemmings. As I said, the epistemological foundation of our system has to change and ensure that critical thinking and individualist efforts are the reality. And all this sham and fraud and hypocrisy of group thinking and so-called teamwork is just buried fathoms deep, never to be resurrected. That way lies some hope for a new renaissance. And what we need is a new renaissance with critical thinking, not based on group thinking. Thank you and have a nice time.